that, I don't think it's possible. We cannot do projects. I can't even design in the office, so it's not possible.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Thank you for the answer. Saptaparna has a somewhat technical question, but asked very poetic in a very poetic way. She asks, "How do you go about creating such mesmerizing planting palettes that weave with the site and buildings?" So the question is about planting palettes.
So, you said her name was?
Saptaparna.
What a lovely name. Okay. So, Saptaparna, I can promise you, and I really, at the cost of, architects wanting to beat me in the head after I finish saying this, but there's nothing more difficult and there's nothing more enjoyable than doing a planting plan. There is nothing more satisfying than that. No building is as satisfying. No, nothing is more satisfying. So planting plans take weeks and months in the office. So you can get the basic design in place, you can get the basic structure of the design in place, and you kind of know what is the palette that you're going to use, you know the sort of morphology of planting. But then one day you really have to sit down and look at, depending on which project it is, you have to look at like 1,000 or 2,000 different characters that you have to pick and choose for this little play. And out of this couple of thousand, 5,000 at times characters, you have to pick 700, 800 characters. Then you have to find whether they can sort of talk to each other, sit with each other, live with each other. And then you start stitching these little patterns of planting together. Then you review it and you change it. We make models, we make sketches. It's not, even after my father, for example, was one of, I think, the kind of person who he knew about 30, 35,000 plans, like he knew me, he knew them to that level of familiarity. I don't think there's anybody in the country who's known plants the way that he's known plants. But even for him, when he was 75 years old, for him to do a planting plan took weeks. So he would sit on a table with a tracing, with a bunch of colored markers, and then he would code it all, and then he would not like it, and then he would put one more tracing, and then he would code it all again. Then he would give that drawing to somebody in the office to sort of do a rough cast draft. It would go on forever. And I remember this with frustration because there was time when I used to walk up to him to help me to do planting plan on the projects that I was managing. And I was far more restless in those days. And I would say, we need this planting plan quickly and he would smile at me and say, yes, get it, sir. And then he would work on it for several weeks till he was happy. So it's a delightfully complex thing to do.
Yeah. So in connection with that, there is one question from Rishabh Gupta. I'm glad you spoke about Professor Prabhakar Bhagwat as well. He asks, was landscape organically a love for you since childhood? How did it come to you before you became a professional?
Not at all. It wasn't. If it was, my grandfather, of course, was the superintendent of the Empress Botanical Garden in Pune. And, sure, I used to go with him to the Sakal Bhajipala Samiti meetings as a young kid. And sure, I used to go with my father on the scooter when he went early in the morning. Did I put to it? Not at all. I don't think that it was conscious in my mind at all. I was a good student in school. I did very well till the 10th standard. And then I joined a co-ed school in the 11th and 12th. And sure enough, my grades crashed. So by the time I finished the 12th standard, my grade was so bad that I wouldn't have gotten admission anywhere else. No science college was giving me admissions. And it just seemed like the logical thing to go and try architecture. In those days, it wasn't so difficult to get into CEPT. And well, I got into CEPT. I spent 5 years being the complete indifferent student. I don't think architecture touched me at all in the 5 years that I was in CEPT. And then, like this rolling stone who had no purpose in life, I said, well, now that you finished 5 years of architecture, what next? I was completely unemployable, of course, and there was no way that I could do anything right. So I said, well, the logical thing was to do a postgrad program. So I hobbled into SPA because in those days, that was the only place that offered landscape. Something happened there. I mean, that's a different story, but something happened there. And I decided to get my act together. And, those 2 years, I think, were very critical just for me because I just managed to think it through and just decided that I had to be extremely conscious and try and be as good as I could in whatever that I was touching. And it slowly became a habit. So I think it grew as a love. It grows every day, but I don't think when I joined in '86, I had even a fraction of the affinity or love for landscape that I have today.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So I guess before we end the, there's one more question from.
No, that's Swani just wanting to talk.
Sir, you said that you are not happy when you do when you design the projects, but then when you get happy when you see other people enjoying your gardens. So then, sir, what's the point?
The point?
Yeah, if you as a designer don't feel happy, but
you do feel happy, right?
Stressed.
You feel happy after. I think it's about when you want to. Do you want? It's really a story of, how quick do you want to be able to be. How quickly do you want happiness, right? So you can be happy listening to cheap popular music, and then you can be happy one day listening to slightly better evolved music, and then one day you will move on. I say this jokingly, but one day you will move on to classical music, and finally you'll arrive at jazz, right? No, that's a journey. So do you want to be happy just because you've done a good drawing? Yeah, sure, be happy, but that's like good fun music. Do you want to be happy because you've delivered a project? Yeah, sure, but that's like popular music. You want to really be happy about something is when that something is beginning to live, when it's lived a life and you have become part of that life. Then I think that happiness means it's got some depth. But otherwise, it's like Noel Coward says, beware of the popularity of cheap music.
So you mean to say when the plants are children, small children, they don't make you happy enough?
No, they make me happy. They make me happy. They make me happy. But I think you know what I'm saying, right?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, sure.
Thank you for the questions.
This is Swani pulling my leg, but that's okay.
Yeah, so our director, Professor Manoj Parmar, would like to say something.
Yes.
Over to you, Manoj.
Oh, no, just wanted to say thank you very much. Not that we have too many landscape architects that we can talk to academically, as well as, it's a strong relationship with our nature and ecology. So I think it's very interesting, and we hope that we will have more such kind of dialogue for coming years, and I hope to involve you somewhere where we can bring in this kind of attitude towards kind of a landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manoj, and such a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And be safe, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sandeep. And we've come to actually the end of our encounter session for the spring session this semester, and we'll be now meeting back in July. I'd especially like to thank my team, my graphics team, Ankush, Shravan, Fleur, and Aditya. Madhura's not here today, but I've missed her, and I would like to thank her as well. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for being there.
Thank you.
Bye. And thanks, of course, for faculty and Manoj for attending